Okay, welcome back. You're here with Street Fight Politics. I've got Harry Ramsbottom and Christine, and hopefully we'll have some Louis show up. And we don't know about Ken because he's been sort of incommunicado. But one of the things that I need to talk about is we on the left have got to get new leadership. What happened it wasn't a State of the Union, but whatever, that for shorthand, that's what we're going to call it, was so abysmal. I mean, it's like the only person that really was putting up a fight was Al Green. And he got censured for it. Not only did he get censured, 10 Democrats voted to censure him also. You look and listen to Hakeem Jeffries. He called an all hands on deck meeting today because he was so embarrassed about the lack of decorum by the Democrats during that State of the Union address. And you want to know what, Hakeem? You're dead to me. If you have that little of the guts to put up a fight, a real fight, and so you had AOC, Jasmine Crockett, you had a few others, but the rest of you are holding up your little bidding paddles, with, it wasn't even harsh language. It was just a strongly worded rebuke. Oh, give me a break. So Hakeem Jeffries, if, I get there, I'm not voting for you to remain there, because the last thing I would want would be another gutless Democrat to somehow get to the Oval Office. It's just, a tragedy that we have leadership on the left that is non-existent, and that's at all levels of government. I mean, look, that was the time to go out and have a unified protest. Not that we're going to coordinate and have little pink or white dresses on or whatever the hell you call that. That was the time when Al Green got tossed out. One after another of you should have gotten up and walked out, one after another. Not in mass, but just keep it so the camera has to keep falling on you. But no, you don't have people that think like that. It's time to finally pick up the knife, have a street fight, get in the gutter. And if you're not going to do it, we're going to find people who will. Anyway, that's my rant to start things off. So, Louis, welcome. You were in Washington.
What did I walk into here?
Well, I mean, one of the things I think also is that, we've reached the point where, we sort of had this idea, we need to lay back, let things develop. Mm-hmm. It's getting away from us. It's time to start really getting out on the street and letting our politicians know that we're coming for them. I mean, and one of the amazing things, I've seen people openly talk about Elon Musk being offed. Apparently he's getting death threats by the dozens every day. And, it's stupid shits that are actually out there, using their computer to mail in a death threat.
Even worse, his Twitter was offline today multiple times. It may still be down as far as I know. And that's just in addition to his stock for Tesla tanking.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, what's interesting is for him, he's using the value of his Tesla stock to back up all his other deals.
Not anymore.
Well, once it gets below a certain level, they're going to start, that's where you start getting cash calls, based on all that stuff. And once that starts happening, you can go from 450 billion and suddenly go to zero really fast. You saw that back in 2009 when you saw AGI, go from one of the most valuable financial companies in the world to the only reason they didn't bankrupt is because we saved them. Anyway, Louis, you were in Washington.
Yeah. First of all, I want to make sure you can hear me okay. Is my microphone working all right?
You're a little low, but we can hear you.
A little low. Okay, let me see if I can do something here. But yes, to answer your question, I was in Washington recently. Does that help a little bit right there?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay. I had to increase the volume quite a bit on the settings here. Yeah, so I was in Washington recently, and it was it was interesting. I mean, I didn't get a chance to, I was there on, business, obviously, so I didn't get a chance to do a lot of the stuff I wanted to do, but the vibe is definitely different there nowadays. Not only from some of the staffers that I was talking to on the Hill, but just the overall vibe, at restaurants and just different places, at hotels even. It's a strange town to begin with, but but the vibe that I got over there was, again, it was the stuff we've been talking about for weeks. It was, uncertainty, people not really knowing what's going to happen next. I didn't see anything crazy happening, protests or anything like that. I'm sure they were going on. I'm positive they were. But where I was at, I just didn't have a chance to see that. But overall, it's just a strange vibe there right now.
The only protests I've seen going on here in the DMV, as we call it, are at the Tesla dealerships. I'm not making that up. That's really
we
cool.
know.
Yeah.
It's like, talk about the loser symbol of 2025. I mean, people are doing everything they can to either get rid of them, or they're rebranding them. I saw one the other day that had a Toyota on the back.
Really?
Well, you said something to me that really caught my ear, and there's something about that in today's Arizona Republic, that a lot of people that are Latino, whether they're even the ones that are completely legal, are afraid to leave their house. They won't go shopping. They're afraid to get in their car because they're terrified that if they get pulled over, they're going to be in Guantanamo, a couple of days later.
Yeah, this kind of conversation can take many different directions, but I'll tell you that from the people that I know and that I talk to that are here in Arizona, even in California, pretty much all over, that have family, it could be from Mexico, Central America, I mean, wherever, right? That are not documented. A lot of those people are afraid to the point where they're not even going to work anymore. They're staying in their home. They're not going on vacations. I know of one particular example where the family, the daughter was going to be taking the family to a vacation, but the mom refused to go on vacation because she's not documented and she's afraid of making the drive to California, to Disneyland. So essentially, she's a prisoner in her own home by choice, because of the fear. And that's one example of one family. And I started questioning this person more and digging a little bit deeper in terms of, because this person is in that community. So I can imagine that it's multiplied by 1,000, if not more, all over. There's even some people that I know in certain professions that you would assume are not, you wouldn't think of these professions right away, but like I'm talking like realtors that have to show homes that are not doing that anymore. People that would normally go out that rightfully can purchase a home, but don't want to go look for one anymore because they're not documented. Things like that. Those are the things that I've been hearing. And we always talk about the fear. And I think it's more than fear at this point. It's almost becoming just a normal part of their life now. Because if you think about it, a lot of, this was an interesting comment that this person made to me. She said, well, my mom has Uber Eats and, she can pretty much have Amazon deliver everything she needs, which is a very strange, it's not funny by any means, but it's a very strange, almost like dystopian way of thinking about how these people are being put into this situation where they're forced to just sit there and order Amazon all day and Uber Eats and they're afraid to leave. It's sad. It's very sad.
And we've got citrus picking season coming up here just around the corner. which is going to be really interesting. Where are those people? Will they be out in the fields? How's that going to work?
I don't think so. I mean, it's like in California, there were whole fields of stuff that rotted because there was nobody, they literally, a lot of them went back to Mexico and they said, I'm not coming back.
Right. And I mean, we know about all these stories. There's that's not here. Someone's dialed up there. So, the other thing I was talking to her, she was mentioning that, a lot of these families, you'll have, let's say, a father and a mother and a grandmother. And as an example, let's just say all of them are undocumented, but yet they all disagree on what they should do. And I've seen and heard of cases where there are families where the mom decides to just go back to Mexico. The dad will stay, for example. The grandmother doesn't know what to do. And that was their choice. So the effect is more than just like the common stuff we hear about, the fear and all of that, the groceries not being shipped, all that, the fruit and all that. But this is really more of it's a very, very sad human side to this whole situation. And these are our neighbors. These are people that live down the street. These are people that I interact with pretty much every day. And I would never think of that because I don't live in that situation. But it's sad. It's a very sad thing that it's just becoming almost normal now. It just is what it is. And for them to have to normalize it, I think is very sad. Think about the choice, right? I mean, you either leave and go back to wherever it is, Mexico or whatever country it is, or be a prisoner in your own homes to a degree.
That's exactly what MAGA wants. They would hear your story if any of them do, and they're going to say, good, that's what we want.
Right.
That's a sad statement, but
it really is. And when I was talking to this person in particular, it really hit me in a way where it is true. There's a very, very sad human side to this whole thing. We all know about that. But to your point, you're right. That's kind of what they want. I think that is what they want.
Yeah. There's no pity on their end. There's there's no feeling that, what is the capital cost here? What are we giving up in order for that to happen?
Right.
And again, I'm going back to citrus picking because most of us here, Christine's in Florida. I'm from Florida. Y'all are in the Phoenix Valley there. Citrus is all around in those areas. And it's hanging from the trees, and somebody's got to get it off of those trees. And if they don't, then we will not only be paying higher prices in eggs, but we'll be paying higher prices in citrus and orange juice and all of that stuff that comes along with it. So it's absolutely. I mean, it's at this point, I said it, I think a couple of weeks ago, we're just in consequence management, but those are the consequences that we're having to manage now.
Yeah, it's true. That's kind of where we're at, which is, a sad reality, I think, but it's, real quick on this other point you were making earlier, Ed, I don't even know if you made it or if it was in my head and I didn't make it, but I wanted to. If you think about, where these people live and work, I mean, they're literally everywhere, all over the place. This is our neighborhood, right? So like if you, for example, go down and need a tire changed or something, I mean, think about that. People aren't there anymore. You can see it all over, right? If you're drive down to the south side of Phoenix, the west side, for example, or parts of, South Phoenix, Laveen, into the West Valley, that's what you're seeing.
Well, I mean, that's the thing I'm worried about are all the follow-on effects of all this stuff.
Yeah.
You're taking the people doing a lot of the jobs that make our society work, and then also taking away the demand, because it's not like they're not spending the money that they're making.
Right.
So now all of a sudden you're not buying houses, you're not buying a lot of stuff. So, it's like a double, triple, quadruple whammy when you look at this.
Yeah.
Not to mention, these asinine tariffs. And it's like, the fact that they've got, in theory, educated, grown people sitting there lying through their teeth about what a tariff is. Like, oh yeah, it's like, we're going to make all these other countries pay this. No, it doesn't work like that.
Right. Yeah. It's fundamentally wrong. Right?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, this is a simple way for Trump to impose a 25% tax on poor people.
Absolutely.
If you were to say, oh, we're going to go, put an income tax and raise it 25%, there would be rioting. But put a 25% tariff and then explain it like, oh, we're going to make China and all these other people pay it.
So
And
as a result of that, Goldman Sachs today, at the end of the day, cuts the U.S. GDP view to 1.7% for 2025.
Wow,
So
that was today, huh?
that's like almost in half.
Yeah.
We that's in the big world, that's that takes us down ridiculously low and makes us look like idiots. Well, because we are.
We are. I mean, you've got to, that's where you just have to say, we voted them in. I think there was a lot of shenanigans with that vote. I mean, it's like, there's a ton of legal, cleansing of the voter rolls in a lot of the southern states. I mean, it's like, if you look, like in Georgia, there are 400,000 Black people who were taken off the rolls just in the last 2 years. That was the margin of victory, well within. And and it's like, that's where there needs to be a coherent strategy to go back and get these people. Well, Christine, what's your thoughts on all this?
I was just going to pipe in because it's probably been the thing that's been concerning me the second most, like, the data stuff and the, impending oligarchy or actual worsening oligarchy are definitely on my mind. But how we get out of this and the voter suppression techniques and kind of going back, Ed, to what you said about the lack of response from the Democratic Party, I don't understand why we don't hear them talking about voter suppression more often, like real strategies that could work so that way, people who were concerned about voter fraud are satisfied without disenfranchising lots and lots of people. Because there seems to be like very reasonable ways we could do this that kind of already exist that we just choose not to. And then, they're going to bring in the SAVE Act on top of all of the other gerrymandering, what they're doing in Georgia with the vigilante vote contesters. And I forget the name of the software, but Greg Palast talks about it a lot, where they just kind of like automate kicking people off the rolls. So, I'm kind of wondering, well, yeah, 2026 will be great, but how can we ever guarantee that this is going to be free and fair? Like, where do we go from here? And that's kind of what's on my mind.
Yeah, well, that's just that we have to survive till 2026 elections. And, we're only, 7-8 weeks into this? And it's,
that's the crazy part.
That's absolutely the crazy part. I mean, we're not even really 2 months into this right now.
Right.
And this has proceeded faster and more furiously than anything that I expected.
Well, and again, you look at the real world consequences. I mean, where you are, Harry, hundreds of thousands of government employees laid off. I mean, and it's like, you look at what's happened to the VA. I'm a doc and I trained at the VA, and I can tell you, I've never seen one that was ever overstaffed.
No.
That just doesn't happen. It's like, literally, when we were at night, it's like we had control of the hospital because we were pretty much the only ones there. So, it's like we were kings as medical students. So this idea that you're going to be able to take away, this many people. And here's the thing is, when you look at the number of government employees, we have the same number of government employees right now that we had in 1950. 1950, it has not increased. And the population, though, from 1950 is up 70%. So if anything, we should be almost doubling the number of government employees. And you see this, the one place that I see it is, every time I have to interact with the DMV here in Arizona, and it's like, I'm proud of myself, not just like blowing a gasket every time I come out of those things. And it's like they, are dealing, with what the hand they were dealt. And so, now you're going to be seeing, well, I mean, it's like here in Phoenix, they laid off everybody in the government services administration that takes care of all the federal buildings here. Like there is literally no one that's going to be in charge of Sandra Day O'Connor Federal Courthouse. They can't even order supplies for it right now because there's no one to do it, literally.
So I can tell you the flip side of that, because my business community are the contractors that sell services and goods and things to the government. And it's just totally dawning on them right now that they don't even know if they're going to get paid on the work they've been done, right, much less whether the contracts that they've been working to bid on will even be there. They're looking at what revenues might be this next year, and it's not looking good. And they don't know. They just do not know. And there's nobody with any answers. It's insane. So when you're talking about people running around looking clueless in DC, Louis, mm-hmm, it ain't just in DC. It's also in Alexandria and places out here in Northern Virginia. It's in the Beltway. People just do not know. And and some of them just don't want to believe it. Others can't believe it. And others are seriously just clueless about it and operating in the old paradigm, which clearly is not working anymore.
And there's also a few, and I've heard this too when I was in DC, that I think is kind of the way to not go about this. But some of them are like, well, we'll just wait it out. We got 4 years. But what happens if the other guy gets in? Then there's 8 years, right? Then so this is not something where you could just wait out.
No, you can't.
You know what I mean? It's serious policy implications and the way we live, and at the end of the day, right? I mean, it's
I mean, that's like right now the plan has got to be, take back the House at the minimum, and hope that
the elections, mm-hmm,
we have elections, number one. And I think if we can get the House back, which is like we may even be able to gum up the works with these 2 Florida elections, although it's Matt Gaetz's old district and somebody equally right wing, but it's like
it's Waltz. It's one of Trump's appointees. I forget what he's appointed to, but it's Waltz's district.
Mm.
So I'm not holding out hope.
I feel like Matt Gaetz' district, Gay Valamont has a chance. I don't know as much about, I think his name is Josh Wheel, who's running for the 6th district. But in the 1st district, that's like it's right by some military bases and like a lot of military families. And they're also like a beachside community that's experienced like a lot of hardship with all of the storms. And Gay Valamont advocates a lot for military families and veterans. And she also does a lot of work as far as like, maintaining the beaches and, helping them recover from storms. So if her people can get excited enough, and perhaps some MAGA people are depressed enough over the events that have happened, I think special elections only get like a 10% turnout as it is. So it's like, I feel like she has a little bit of a chance. I don't know as much about the 6th district though, but if those 2 races could go well, that would make a huge difference over the next 6 to 12 months. It would be a game changer.
Yeah, and the truth is that we're 8 weeks into this, to get to the next time we're going to be able to make a choice. We're talking 22 months from now or 23 months from now. I mean, it's like you've got to make it to that time. And that's the thing where I'm starting to get a little concerned that it's like this yo-yo stuff where Trump is like, we're going to take it off. We're going to tariff them more. Stock market's crash. We better back it off. And it's like you're saying, Harry. Businesses, you have to have some idea.
There's no predictability,
and you can't predict.
The way business has been done with the federal government, not just in DC, but across the country, across the world, has been very predictable for all of our lifetimes. The logic that ran that predictability has now been flipped on its head. There is no logic, or at least not one that we understand. And it can change at any moment. When Doge shows up at that agency's office space and cancels not just the contracts, but the payments on the contracts that have already been awarded. When that happens, you've got big companies like Raytheon, McDonnell Douglas, just pick one big company, General Dynamics. They're all wondering what the hell is going on and what they're going to do about it. And none of them want to believe that the way that they used to work is at risk, if not out the window.
Well, I mean, going and talking about Elon Musk Doge, because that's the way I refer to it now. It's like, it's not just Doge, but it's Elon Musk Doge. I think that's one of the things I'm giving a little bit of hope to, is that people are pissed about Elon Musk. I mean, you're seeing it with,
even Republicans are pissed.
Yeah, exactly. That as soon as you start getting, with Republicans, they don't give a shit about anything until it affects them.
Yeah.
So now it's like, holy crap, I'm on Medicare and getting Social Security. That I didn't vote for that.
Right.
I don't know that makes it so that you're going to convince any of these congressmen that are been co-opted totally by Trump to be changing their vote. I mean, they're terrified, because the only thing they want to do is keep their seats. They have no interest in governing, no interest in using the machinery of government to actually help people. They just want to make sure they can stay in Washington, go to the Dabney or some other fancy restaurant and be wined and dined. It's a great lifestyle. That's why they don't come back home except when they have to.
Oh, well, this has really been a fun show.
Well, from that standpoint, now we need to start talking about what can we do? What can we really do? And the thing is, I'm not asking permission from anybody, in the Democratic leadership. In fact, I think the best thing to do is actually to ignore them, and as soon as we can, shove them aside and put in somebody that's got the energy, to start making concrete plans.
Well, let me tell you what I'm doing. So I will not be on the show next week because I'm going to be in a little place called Whiteville, North Carolina. And it's in the middle of no place. It really is. There is no reason for anybody to ever go to, unless you got family there, to Whiteville, except for the fact that this organization I've been working with called Patriotic Millionaires decided to make it a pilot project, what they call the Great Communities Project. If you want to know more about it, you can, I think it's on Netflix. You can, there's a movie that has recently been released called The Deciders. And it's about the project where over the course of a year and a half or so, Patriotic Millionaire staff went down there and energized the voters to take control of their government. Again, pilot project, very small, one place, one county, one town. But to show people how it can be done, the event I'm going down for is basically the graduation exercise. There's going to be a dedication, and they've got people that are actually went from being zero politically active to being very politically active. And it will end, by the way, this week that I'm gone next week in Raleigh, North Carolina, at the Capitol, where they're actually going to be walking the halls of the Capitol. So more to follow on that when I come back in 2 weeks. But you want to know what I mean? That's the kind of thing that you need to do, and take control of your party, take control of your local party. Most Democratic parties have elections of officers every couple of years, usually after a big election. So now's the time to get active. My local political party, my local Democratic Party, is having elections this weekend. It's time to get active. It's time to get in there and make a change and get rid of the dead weight, the dead wood, the people who make you want to ask permission to do what you want to do, and just take charge and do it yourself instead. So that's my thought. I'll shut up now.
I like your thinking, and it's like you look at it on the national level. We've got to clear out the sclerotic geriatrics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really surprises me that the Democrats would be the ones that go on the seniority system where, if the only way that you're going to get a chairmanship is if you've been there for 30 years and now it's your time. Instead of putting the people that either have the ability to look good on TV, which is Jasmine Crockett, AOC, primarily women in the Democratic Party, and instead you've got all these chairmen that they're late 70s into their 80s, and you've got the minority representation, on the stuff governing IT, barely knows how to use an iPhone, to call home. Instead of having somebody younger that is media savvy.
So I just posted a link to a story about the deciders on our pages. Y'all can see it there. Do what you will with it, but at least gives you an idea of what is happening around the country, what can happen around the country.
Well, I want to call out Laura. Put something in the comments that I think is going to be very germane as we go by, and it will be one of the things I think that's going to affect trad wife Republicans way more than Democratic women who tend to keep their own name when they get married. And that's the fact that they're making these rules that to register to vote, the name you use has to match the name on your birth certificate. And as we know, it's been very traditional in American society that when you get married, the woman will take the man's last name. And that's going to be a problem for a lot of people when you come in, and even if you are still registered, and now they're going to look at it, hold on, it says Smith on your birth certificate, but here it says Jones as your married name. Sorry, you can't vote.
So much for that traditional view of family and marriage.
Oh, yeah.
I know very few people that have the same name on their, like identically.
Yeah.
I have a C in my name somewhere. I don't even know what the C stands for. Literally, I'm not even joking. I don't joke. I swear, I'm not kidding you. And it's like an initial, so if I went technically and showed my ID, I don't put the C in there.
Oh, so then you could be like JD Vance. We'll call you LC from now on. So
I guess you could. It's it's bizarre stuff, man. that we're noticing, and I think I mentioned this to you a couple days ago or so. I can't remember. Ed, is that so I have some family right now in Europe, and they are reporting back telling me that it is completely just anti-American right now out there.
Somebody. I've got a lot of Canadian peeps, and one of them sent me something that even 4 to 5 weeks ago, 73% of Canadians wanted to treat you and me, the everyday Americans, cordially and not, Canadian nice. After this past weekend, it is down below 23% and falling. And, for you to piss off a Canadian, my God, if you know any of these guys, it's like they are the most polite, self-effacing people you've ever met.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Yeah. So
Well,
it's.
I was going to say that it's, something like very important to Canadian culture is that they are a distinct culture from America. And I think the tariffs were a big deal, but I also just think Trump's 51st state rhetoric
Yeah.
was also, because it's just a very like a cultural, like sensitivity that they don't want to be America Junior. And, unlike little Marco Rubio, Canada will not capitulate. So,
I mean, you got to remember where that's coming from. This is coming from Putin and that oligarchic sphere. They want to go away from what we've had for 80 years with the U.S. being the guarantor of NATO, and us keeping peace, which if you look at European history has been remarkably quiet. Because if you look at a map of all the battles that have happened over the last 2,000 years, Europe is basically this black thing. It's got so many little dots of battles that have been there. We haven't had that. Now you're going to see that. And more to the point is Trump wants to make it so we go from that to where we just have our spheres of influence. China, you want Taiwan? We're not going to stand in your way anymore. Which I'm really shocked that they haven't made a move on Taiwan already.
They've increased their defense budget and they have made public statements, which they do a fair amount. So it's not that weird, but they've made public statements. They are ready for war with the U.S.
Yeah, you heard that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they're joking either.
No, I believe it word for word.
I think they're overly ambitious, but I also think it's amazingly questionable whether we'd even go to war with them.
With Trump in charge, I don't think we do.
The main thing that we would have, realistically, that we would have to fight about is Taiwan. And just as you said, Ed, I think Trump is perfectly happy to let Xi have Taiwan.
Right, and Putin, is doing his best to try to give them all of Ukraine, not just the stuff that they've taken over.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, you want to go back and grab Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, and all those other things. We're not going to stand in your way.
A year ago, that would have invoked NATO, Article 5. It would have invoked the United States response along with our NATO partners. Now, I don't think that we would respond. I think we'd be perfectly happy to let them do it.
Well, that's where ever since my trip to France, I get a lot of stuff that I keep up with. There is a French senator who just laid out the most thoughtful, response to all this, and it's like they're saying that right now we will use the French nuclear shield as our bulwark. And I think you're seeing Britain coming in and saying the same thing. So,
interestingly, and this was kind of a ripple in the force, Poland is now not only instituting universal military training for all males, but they're also talking about adopting nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Which they could unilaterally do. There's nothing that would, there's a lot of treaties that would prevent them to do that, but there's nothing in force that would keep them from doing that other than Putin himself.
Yeah, well, that's just that, we've so completely destroyed norms at every level of society, worldwide, that, if I'm Poland, it's like, you know what? There's uranium in our territory. We don't have to go outside to get it. We can mine it. The thing is, what people joke about, the stupid Poles, they're anything but that. I mean, they produce more, phenomenal scientists, mathematicians than almost any other society.
Oh, yeah.
Musicians. I mean, it's, they're quite a remarkable culture.
Yep, absolutely.
So
history and definitely.
So, I mean, that's actually when once you start looking at that, then you don't have a unified chain of command to be using nuclear weapons. Then it's sort of like, it could come from any which way, and one way or another, everybody's going to get dragged into it.
Yeah. the people who voted for Trump because they thought he would keep the world safe and out of war, it's accomplished exactly the opposite. But that's just me saying I told you so.
Well, I mean, that's, as far as what we can do in the future, that's one of the things I've been giving a lot of thought to is I think we're going to have to get over the I told you so and just say, I don't care that you voted for Trump, but it's like, I need to know that you're not going to sin anymore and continue this. It's like, that's part of, that, quasi-evangelical outreach. We're not going to get the guys that voted for Trump 3 times that are still sitting there saying, that are cheering on the cruelty. But there are a lot of people that voted for Trump that voted for Obama. And I think that's the tranche of voters that you need to go back and get. Mm-hmm. And so, Louis, that's where I'm going to have to, lean on you. How do we do that?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of people that are surprised that could happen. I'm not one of them. That to me makes total sense. I do vote for Obama and Trump. I mean, they're almost like they're not the same people, but they come from similar kind of outside backgrounds. It's that, so like to me, yeah. So to your question, those I believe are the majority of people out there actually. So it's almost like literally just going to the grocery store and talking to those types of people. That's who they are. They're just average people.
I agree with that. And the thing is, I think that one of the things that really hurt us the last time is that you've got, Democrats, liberals, progressive, cosplaying, I'm a blue collar guy, with,
right.
New $200 jeans and, a flannel shirt that just came from, from
yeah, like it's fake, right? I mean, you can.
Yeah, it's really fake. And it's condescending, and having come from Eastern Kentucky, you can spot these people really, really easy. And it's just like, yeah, fuck you, buddy.
Do you remember years ago that guy that ran for Congress? He confronted Obama, the plumber guy. Remember him?
Oh yeah.
Joe the plumber.
Joe the plumber. I remember when that happened, and I remember thinking like, these are the people that are just the average people that have this way of thinking. Try not to generalize here, but those are the kind of people that can go either way. I think they're looking for change, whatever you want to call it. They have this outsider mentality. I mean, whatever, right? They're not political. At least he became until he ran for Congress, I guess. But yeah, these are the people that are just out there that I kind of talk to when I'm, at the hockey rink or at the grocery store or whatever. They're just there. In other words, to your question again, I think we just got to get out of our bubble and go talk to them.
Well, I mean, that's just it. I mean, it's like, I do the stuff where when I get the chance, I'm out there talking, listening more than I talk, what's concerned you, and, the price of everyday life is getting hand. It's not just, the inability to buy a house. It's getting to the point where you're having to start looking at, how much do I spend at a grocery store now?
Yeah, it's true. Eggs. I mean, I know people keep talking about eggs, but there's a certain underlying reality to that, like.
Well, and the thing is, that's where I'm waiting for, somebody on the Democratic side to take the Secretary of Agriculture and tear them limb from limb, saying, well, what the thing you can do is everybody should own a chicken now. And, raise your own eggs. And if you having come from a farm, it's like having chickens around is messy. They're noisy. Your neighbors are going to hate you. And it's
I'm sure there's ordinances around from cities that don't allow that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, most of them.
You can't just.
And it's also, if you're using feed, guess what?
Yeah.
You're turning your $10 a dozen eggs into like 25. Because if out here, it's like I've given up trying to raise tomatoes in Arizona because I realized that I was paying about by the time I harvested, I had put in like $25 a pound.
Just for the tomato. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me give you an even more practical reason why people shouldn't be raising chickens. It's because the major vector for avian flu
Well,
are wild birds.
yeah, let's
So unless you've got a way to keep the wild birds out of your chicken coop, which most people aren't even thinking about,
right. That's
you just got more bird flu.
I mean, this is a whole list of, I mean, it's coyotes, all this stuff. I mean, yeah, it's asinine to think.
It's also just like the hyper libertarian response to the
Right.
problem. Like, not let's, we have some of the brightest people in the world. We have, wonderful schools that educate people. And why aren't we using those people to fix this problem instead of, adding like raising chickens to people's list of burdens that they need to do? It doesn't seem efficient. And, since the theme of all of what's going on is supposed to be efficiency, then we're definitely not there. But I couldn't help but drawing kind of like a parallel between Trump and Obama and why people might vote for them. And I feel like Twitter was a very common thread where both of them sort of mastered that public square and communicating with people. And I wonder if our next leaders are going to be people that we see in these new spaces like Twitch, for example, or people who are streaming and who just get out there and talk to everyday people like AOC, for example. On the MAGA side of things, however, there were a lot of Twitch streamers who became involved with Donald Trump, promoted him on their streams, and got a lot of young voters that way. So I almost wonder if some of them would be vying for a political career in the future, which would be kind of dystopian and scary. But I feel like the talking directly to the people thing is like what gets those middle of the road voters a little bit more activated.
I agree with you. Yeah, 100%. And also nowadays, I mean, it used to be, as we all know, people would sit at home and watch TV to get information. Now they're like laying in bed scrolling. I mean, you can touch millions more people that way. And I think to Christine's point, they both did that in different ways to a very successful degree, for the times that they were running.
Well, one of the things that's giving me heart is there's a podcast that I follow called Midas Touch.
Oh yeah,
which is now the #1 podcast. They've surpassed Joe Rogan. And in fact,
by the way, I know that guy, Ken Harbaugh.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Ken Harbaugh is the producer of it, and he and I've met him face to face. He and I are engaged in some other work that I just will say we're engaged in other work. And and you're right. He has surpassed Joe Rogan amazingly.
That's wild.
Yeah,
That's wild.
you got another one, Brian Taylor Cohen, who's been also growing a large audience. I mean, it's like they're all in the same swimming pool.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of their viewers, the Venn diagram pretty much overlaps almost completely. But we're making a sphere of influence, and we're part of that too with this podcast. I mean, it's like we don't have the reach of them, but that's why we're trying to get our message out, to people that don't know about Midas Touch and Brian Taylor Cohen, and the other part of that ecosphere.
It's like the reverse pipeline. Over the last decade or so, we've had the alt-right pipeline where people get funneled in through shows like Joe Rogan into more and more right-wing spaces. I almost feel like Midas Touch is something that would sort of filter people towards the other side, where it's casting a wide net and it's going to be relatable content for a lot of different types of people who will then sort of get nudged by their algorithms into more left-leaning content rather than radical right-wing content. At least that's what I'm kind of hoping we have sort of a reverse pipeline going in the other direction for the
the other
next decade.
One of the things that's hurting us at the Democratic level is you're seeing all these people. Well, I've got to scramble over to the center to try to grab off some of these Trump voters. Over the last 30 years, the goalposts have been moved so far to the right.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm waiting for somebody to have the brains to run a campaign that actually is left of center. That's not afraid. You want to call me a woke liberal? Go for it. That's
You mean like Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, Bernie Sanders. Yeah, that would be perfect. And he still seems to be pretty with it for a guy that's, how old is he now? 80
I have
something?
no idea.
84.
Is he 84
I think.
really?
I'm surprised he's only 84. Honestly, to be fair. So,
Yeah, so,
well,
Yeah.
Ed, are you still running for office? Is that in the cards?
that's in the cards. I'm waiting to find out what happens with the Flynn Foundation. I think I'm supposed to hear from. I'm going to get an interview hopefully sometime this week.
Okay.
If I can get to the interview process, I think I can sell myself after that. So
because you're way younger than Bernie Sanders.
yes, I know. So thank God. But yeah, I mean, here in the CD1 in Arizona now, there's at least 6 people that have either said they're running or filed their notice that they're interested in running. Marlon Galen Woods is somebody that's run in the past. Amish Shaw was the candidate the last time out, and then 4 other people I've never heard of before. Oh yeah, one of them is a couple of them are Democratic Party operatives. So it's like I'm still not worried about any of them because I would be running a campaign in a primary that would be completely different from any of them. It's not going to be treated with any respect. It's going to be, I'm going to take a page out of Trump's book and go to the gutter. And it's like, one of the things I said, in this little video I did was, you don't have to worry about me going to the gutter. I'll be there waiting for you.
I used to tell
It's
people if they ever wanted to go on Facebook and swim in the gutter, I'd be there waiting for them doing the backstroke.
But and that's my
You're gonna be like it.
that's the type of campaign that actually would attract attention and would work. Who thought that Trump insulting everybody he came across in 2016 during the primaries would be effective? I mean, the traditional opinion was like, this is so against the norms that he'll be gone very soon. And he just kept picking one after another off until he was the last man standing, literally. He didn't think he was going to win in the general. And I think he was more surprised than anybody that how the vote went.
Yeah.
The first
it's a
time
reflection
around.
of who we are. I mean, yeah.
Actually, the first time around and the second time around when he lost, but this time around I don't think he was surprised at all. Not even
the most recent.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't surprised. It was us that were surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a better way to.
We had the surprise. Well, guys, we've been at this. We're coming up on close to an hour, and so
yeah, you've talked me. You talked me dead. I got nothing left.
What is it, like midnight where you're at? I don't even know, man.
No, it's almost 8 o'clock. Which, but I'm an old man, so that's getting close to my
That's
bed.
the equivalent of midnight.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll see if we can't get Ken back, to the table here. But next week, Harry will be in North Carolina.
I will.
And we'll wait for the report when he gets back. So if anybody does have anything else to say, I think, this is, again, thank you for being with us. We really appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
You got
Adios,
it.
guys.
Take care, everybody. Bye.